Hi guys, this is NUB SAUCE playing Transport Fever. We're back again in the European campaign, about to start the third mission called Hard Times.
The new century is still young, but things don't look good. Tensions in Europe are rising. Hopefully, everything will turn out well. Fortunately, transportation services are always in demand, in good times and in bad. You just can't have any scruples about who you get involved with. In any case, it's certainly worthwhile to be well prepared for any eventuality. The year is 1914 in beautiful Scandinavia. Fortunately, we are separated from Central Europe by the North and Baltic Seas, because things are getting noticeably uncomfortable there. Tensions are increasing. We are in the comfortable situation of sitting on top of gigantic deposits of raw materials, which someone will probably need very soon. On the other hand, we are dependent on foodstuff imports if we want to eat something other than crisp bread and rotten fish. Secure our country's basic supply for whatever may come.
Okay, so this mission is based in Sweden. What we have here is the city of Malmö, the city of Göteborg, and the city of Jönköping, which is spelled wrong. This should be an N. The concept is that in Malmö we have a harbor where we can export steel and import food, and then we can supply that food to these three cities. To make that steel, we have the steel mill up here, we have an iron mine, and we have a coal mine, and to really increase and ramp up the production, we need somewhere to put the slag. So down here in the southern end of Malmö we have a construction materials plant that can turn it into bricks. We can sell it in Malmö or whatever. Apart from that, we could look into some passenger traffic to make money. This is probably the most tricky map that tricky mission that I've ever tried in across the American and the European campaign. Getting everything to scale up and scale down, as you will see, is quite a balancing act. Before we start the mission, let's just look at the 5 medals, and the goal is to win all 5 of these. Well supplied, achieve a supply of foodstuffs of 10% in the affected cities in less than 6 years. You will see that isn't that hard. It's just about building a network and getting it moving. Shamelessly rich, amass a wealth of at least 50 million despite these hard times. So at the end of the game, you should have, at some point, have 50 million in cash. And that can be quite tricky. Squirrel, stockpile at least 500 foodstuffs before the war begins. This can also be quite tricky. Fairly distributed, make sure that no city has a supply of food over 30 while another goes empty-handed. And the first couple of tries, that was impossible for me. Because the source of the food was close to Malmö. Malmö was served. I got a plentiful supply of food, while the Jönköping and Göteborg didn't get so much. So the trick I'm going to use here is to make the food distribution go out from the center of Sweden, somewhere up here. So all 3 cities are almost equidistant from the distribution center. That way all 3 cities should get almost the same amount all the time. Hard times, never let the food supply fall below 5% during the war. Again, this was a bit tricky in my first couple of attempts, but with a distribution center in the middle, it shouldn't be that huge a problem. So the biggest problems are these: amassing 50 million and amassing 500 foodstuff before the deadline. But let's get started.
Germany needs huge amounts of steel. We don't know exactly what they need it for, but we are in a position to deliver that steel. In return, we can import foodstuffs. For example, good beer, which is in extremely short supply here.
Yeah, I guess the story behind the mission is the build-up for the First World War. Except that this mission starts in 1914, and the war won't start until around 1920. But I guess they skewed the mission a couple of years with regards to what vehicles are available. So the first mission is to get some food to all 3 cities, and to get food we need to get steel. But before we get into that, there's a side quest here.
According to rumor, a German U-boat sank a Swedish schooner with a valuable cargo. 5,000 bottles of champagne, 67 barrels of cognac, and 17 barrels of wine were stored on board. The one who finds this treasure will be a real lucky duck. The lady from the harbor should know more.
Question the lady at the harbor.
The lady from the harbor said she could help us. Recently, a message in a bottle washed up on the pier. She gave us the note, written in a scrawling hand. It says, "We're sinking. Ship in distress. Don't let the good stuff go bad. Look on the coast in the east."
It's a weird form of humor to actually write down your hiccups and slurs. But here on the East Coast.
It must be somewhere around here. We'll send out a boat to locate the spot and salvage this valuable barge.
The treasure underwater. And there's something underwater here.
Found it? How lucky can you get? We found the sham booze ship.
Okay. So that was the side mission. It gives us 1 million extra in cash. So we got a little more to work with. My strategy for this mission is to put up a big distribution center right next to this food storage site. Because later it will have to stock up the food, so it will also be nice to have that food distributed going out from here. And it's almost in the middle of Sweden, or at least the part of Sweden in this map. I could use trains to move every single good around the map, but that's a really heavy investment. And even if you take out the 2 loans that are available, I couldn't really afford it and afford to upgrade everything as demand goes up. So I'm going to stick with using a train for getting the steel from the steel plant to the harbor and getting the food from the food harbor to the distribution center. And then I'll use trucks to move the rest of the stuff around. I'll also set up bus lines between these towns just to get a lower amount of traffic on the roads and a little bit of extra income. I think it's about time I start building something. Okay, so now I built my initial framework and I put in the roots to support it. To start off, we have coal going up to the distribution center, and we have another line taking coal up to the steelworks, where it takes slag the other way, and we have a line taking slag to the construction materials plant and selling the bricks in Malmö. We also have a line for iron going to the steelworks. And if we switch to trains, we have a train taking steel from steelworks down to the harbor, and we have a train taking food from the harbor up to the distribution center. And then we have 3 separate lines taking food out to the 3 cities respectively. And on top of that, I have 3 bus routes connecting the 3 cities. So before I start the game running, I need to put vehicles on everything, and I'll start off with just a few trucks and a few buses and a couple of cheap trains, and then upgrade as money starts rolling in.
The money is slipping through our fingers. We'll soon be bankrupt. But if we're prepared to grovel on our hands and knees, our financiers will grant us a bridge loan.
Yeah, that's fine. Give him some more money here. Okay, so all the lines have some vehicles in it, and the first few trains, which can start everything. The industries will pick up all the demand and start slowly producing. industries are now producing. It should be the first load of iron. The first load of coal. If we look at the demand for food, Melbourne is 76, in shipping 100, and Göteborg 139. So just around 300 in total. So if we look at the harbor, 1 steel converts into 2 food. So we will have a demand for 300 food, so which means we'll have a demand for 150 steel per year. The harbor can take more, as you can see here, but at some point it will the demand will wane because the cities can't take any more. But it does mean that I should aim for a throughput of about 150 overall. That's what I want. Look at the first coal, and then that's a throughput of 55. Throughput 53. That seems reasonable enough for now. I think I might as well put the throughput rate on to 100.
A confusing tangle of dubious alliances and conflicts which spontaneously ignite here and there. Things are getting uncomfortable in Europe. We should make sure that we are not too economically dependent on that unstable mob and have something to eat, even in times of crisis. The country must be prepared and store sufficient reserves of foodstuffs. We have been commissioned to help build an appropriate warehouse.
Okay, so the next mission: deliver construction materials to primary food storage. And that's the building that I put the distribution center out. Clever, huh? I already have a line in place to convert slag into construction materials. So the only thing I need to do at the moment is to remove the stuff where it's dumping the bricks in Melbourne. So that will take them all up to the construction site instead. And then I'll just let that run. And see now that we have a bunch of steel waiting, which means that it'll be a good idea to upgrade the steel train. I don't have that much money to spend. quantity. Seems right.
Good gracious! We're spending money like there's no tomorrow. Just this once, our financial backers are willing to turn a blind eye and help us out once again. But this is definitely the last time.
Yes, so that was the final extra loan I could get. So the rest of my money I need to earn myself. Okay, so that was the first medal. To get at least 10% in all 3 cities. So as I said, that's pretty easy. So now we have to build the warehouse, and when that is built, the focus will be to stockpile of 500 foodstuff.
Tensions are increasing. War seems inevitable. It would be best for our country to remain neutral so that we don't ruin anyone's business. However, our food security is in poor shape. We must expect the importation of foodstuffs to become difficult. We had better be prepared. But the populace also shouldn't have to tighten their belts.
Okay, so first off, my storehouse is now built. So now it'll consume all the food in the world instead of bricks. So the bricks line need to be modified so it actually dumps off bricks again. And because we now have an almost unlimited demand for food, the steel plant should be able to ramp up, produce more, make more money.
End of the line. It's no use begging and pleading. Our financiers are refusing to put even one more penny into our project. Damn it!
Okay, so I upgraded the steel train to 160 meters, which is what fits in the platform. So I think it's time to upgrade the food train as well. So now both food trains are up to 160 meters, so I don't think I'm gonna upgrade them anymore. I don't want to upgrade the food distribution yet.
It's terrible. They're beating each other's brains out on the continent. It's better for us to stay out of it. Too bad all that warfare isn't limited to the continent. It's also happening in the North Sea. Submarines, sea mines, and cruising warships are preventing the importation of the few foodstuffs that are available to import. Nevertheless, we must ensure the supply of our countrymen.
Okay, so that was a failure on the Skrill medal. I only managed to store 348. And I guess that's because I focused on upgrading the steel train rather than the food train. We have about 300 food here. That if I shipped up here, I guess they would have gone into the storehouse. So, if I want to get that medal, I need to rewind. I'm not quite sure how long I need to rewind. I definitely need to go back to one of my own saves. I guess I'll just try the 1919 and see if that's enough. Maybe I should go back to 1917.
Tensions are increasing. War seems inevitable. It would be best for our country to remain neutral so that we don't ruin anyone's business. However, our food security is in poor shape. We must expect the importation of foodstuffs to become difficult. We had better be prepared. But the populace also shouldn't have to tighten their belts.
Already 500 days left. I need to go back to 1917.
A confusing tangle of dubious alliances and conflicts which spontaneously ignite here and there. Things are getting uncomfortable in Europe. We should make sure that we are not too economically dependent on that unstable mob and have something to eat, even in times of crisis. The country must be prepared and store sufficient reserves of foodstuffs. We have been commissioned to help build an appropriate warehouse.
Okay, so this is the time just before stocking up the warehouse. Ah, come on! I need to stockpile one more. So now I got the 500 foodstuff piled up, and it's kind of a two-edged sword because I was losing some of the stockpile because I didn't supply enough food for the cities, but if I were to supply the cities, I wouldn't have as much going into the storehouse. So now that the in 60 days, the storehouse won't accept food anymore, so it's time to ramp up the supply of foods to the town by truck instead.
It's terrible. They're beating each other's brains out on the continent. It's better for us to stay out of it. Too bad all that warfare isn't limited to the continent. It's also happening in the North Sea. Submarines, sea mines, and cruising warships are preventing the importation of the few foodstuffs that are available to import. Nevertheless, we must ensure the supply of our countrymen.
Okay, so now the war on the continent started. And whether this is the First or Second World War it's trying to model, I don't know. But this causes the harbor to change. It still theoretically can take all the steel I have, but now I only produce 1 food per steel. Which means that my steel export will slowly grind to a halt. So part of the mission now is to downgrade my supply lines again, so we don't waste money on supply lines that I can't keep up. For now, they're working, so it's just about getting as much supply, transport of them, as much money gained as possible at the moment. So at the moment, I have 2 cities that are under 10%. They are about to be empty, but hopefully the foodstuffs that I just sent on with an expanded number of trucks should be able to keep that above 0. But it's pretty close to losing another one out of these metals.
Our stockpiles are gone. We have found a farmer who can help us to maintain the supply. He has begun butchering all of the available pigs. Unfortunately, he has a holy terror of a son named Emil, who keeps getting in his way.
Well, that's a reference to some Astrid Lindgren novels. I weren't aware of that. So now this farm is starting producing food, so we can get an extra source. So just put this in. So we'll take food up to the distribution center as normal.
Finally, the war is over, and we survived it unharmed, thanks only to our logistical skills.
Almost there. Never let the food supply below 5% during the war. So I did cook that one up. Which means I have to go back to the autosave again and see if I can get a fairer distribution before the war sets in.
It's terrible. They're beating each other's brains out on the continent. It's better for us to stay out of it. Too bad all that warfare isn't limited to the continent. It's also happening in the North Sea. Submarines, sea mines, and cruising warships are preventing the importation of the few foodstuffs that are available to import. Nevertheless, we must ensure the supply of our countrymen.
Okay, so this time around, I have a distribution of around 30% for free cities. I did manage to just scrape in the 500 for the stockpile. So it seems that I have a much better chance of getting all the metals this time. Both the food trains and steel trains are upgraded to 160 meters length. Which, according to this overview, means that I can transport 700 food a year and about 400 steel a year. Which of course will be have to be downsized pretty soon. The mission itself says to keep an uninterrupted supply of at least 10 foodstuffs. I guess it means 10% foodstuff. So if I can keep up this, around 40%, then everything is fine. Let's see how the steel mill will adapt to my slightly better. Slightly better food distribution, so maybe it doesn't take the sharp dip that it did in the last round. 4 free bus lines and making more than $1 million a year. That's pretty impressive. It's the same as the steel does by itself. So it wasn't a wasted expenditure. Now the memory farm has picked up some reductions. We can put a few more vehicles in there. Oh, that's looking good. The steel mill. It's kept an almost constant production. So, keeping up the food distribution is actually a really good idea. Now I can put Flying Scotsmen on again. Faster speeds, more money per load.
Finally, the war is over, and we survived it unharmed, thanks only to our logistical skills.
Alright, 3rd time's the charm. Well supplied, was easy. Shamelessly rich. I had to sell a couple of trains to get past the 50 mark, but that's part of the trick here. Stockpile at least 500. You know, I managed to do it in the 2nd and the 3rd run. Barely. Fairly distributed. Well, I only got this one in the 3rd run, and then hard times. Oh yeah, I got that in the 2nd and the 3rd run. And then hard times I've got in the 3rd run. So, as I said in the beginning, this is probably the trickiest of all the missions in the game. But it can be done, as you can see. If you have been watching so far, please like and subscribe and comment below the video. See you next week for Mission 4. Bye bye.